To wrap up some of the information that we needed to put together for both week 10 and week 11 due to the extended spring break, I wanted to kind of hold off until now to start talking about the last of this stuff, which is looking at the tune RLE and kind of taking a look at a few of the concepts that go along with it. As you notice today, we're not going to be talking about bar chords. We're not going to be talking about the exercises that deal with PIMA, which are exercises number 6 on page 84 and exercise number 7 on page 85. If you look at the other weeks on your syllabus, week 12, 13, and 14, a lot of the concepts that we have already discussed are going to be talked about throughout the next couple of weeks. So I may just kind of, say to you, please make sure you're working on them because a lot of these concepts you're going to have to do for your final. I'm not going to continue to make videos that just go over those things again unless we need something like that. And again, I would really encourage just if you need help on any of that stuff, just to reach out to me so that we can do something one-on-one just to make sure that you're ready to go with that stuff. So be working on page 84 and 85 with those two exercises. Please make sure that you are working on developing your bar chords as well. So today what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the tune RLE, which you can find on page 64 in the most recent edition of the book. If you have an older edition of the book, RLE is in there as well. Now, I was comparing the two versions of RLE from the newest edition and the older edition, and there are a little bit of discrepancies between the chord changes that are in there. And I'm borrowing Francois' book for teaching purposes of this semester. And I also noticed that he crossed out a few chords as well. So what I decided to do, just to make sure that we're all on the same page, since we're not in class together, just to make those corrections together, what I did was I actually made a new lead sheet, which you can access in the description below on Google Drive. I would like you to use that. Please do not use your book, whatever edition that you do have, because it's not going to be the one that we do for the test. And for testing purposes, I will be using that lead sheet. So anything that you do differently, obviously would not be good for your grade. So what I'd like you to do real quick is just make sure that you do pull up the lead sheet. So go ahead and get that together. All right, so for those of you that may not be as familiar with what a lead sheet is, lead sheets are a tool that musicians will use a lot of times. And what a lead sheet basically boils a piece of music down to is, one, it will give you the melody of the song. So as you can see here, the 16-bar melody for RLE. Two, if there are lyrics to the tune, a lot of the times the lyrics will be included as well. And the other thing that normally you see with the lead sheet is the chord changes, which if you notice here over bar 1, we have a C chord, bar 2, D7, bar 3, G7, and bar 4, C. Lead sheets are great, especially if you are in a bind and you need to be able to play a tune. Jazz musicians are very, very familiar with lead sheets. Pop musicians are very familiar with lead sheets because a lot of the gigs that these musicians do rely on those lead sheets. Lead sheets are a great way for you to get around to playing a tune with close enough accuracy to make it sound like the song. But for those of us that really want to learn a tune, there's nothing better than actually sitting down with a recording and learning it and fleshing it out with the correct, chord changes. Because a lot of the times with lead sheets, especially jazz musicians who use what are called fake books, which are collections of lead sheets, melodies can be incorrect, chord changes can be incorrect, the keys that the songs are played in can be incorrect. Again, lead sheets are one person's interpretation of how a song is performed. That doesn't mean that it's right. Some lead sheets can be 100% correct. Some lead sheets are farther from the truth. So what you're going to be asked is 3 things for your final with the tune RLE in a lead sheet form. The first is going to be playing the melody. I am not going to play the melody for you, and I don't think you need me to sit here and play it for you as well. So it is required of you just to make sure that you are practicing the melody. It's not a difficult melody. You're going to primarily just use strings 1, 2, and 3 to play this melody. So if you have any questions, if you're having issues with it, reach out to me. If not, I trust you guys to be working on this yourselves. The second thing that I'll have you guys do is I'm going to have you guys strum the chords. So what I would recommend for week 1 is making sure that you are just strumming the chords with just a straight quarter note pattern. For your final, we are going to change that straight quarter note strum to a different rhythm, and I'll kind of talk to you guys about that once we get closer. However, if you start working on the quarter note strums now, you'll have no issues switching up the rhythm in your right hand once we get to it. For those of you that are newer to guitar, as you're working on this, look at the chords, look at what chord you're on and what chord is coming next, and think to yourself, what fingers can I keep down? And try to develop that, muscle memory right away. If you're looking at the C chord and you're looking at the D7 chord, play them back to back. There is one note that you can actually keep a finger down between the two. So I won't give that away, but that's something that you guys can also kind of work on yourself. The last thing that we need to look at with Arlie is looking at how to approach playing roots and fifths for every chord that appears on the lead sheet. What's really great about the guitar is that the guitar is set up in patterns, very much like your bar chords, where you take a certain pattern, you can move it anywhere on the guitar neck, and basically you're going to get it in any key, any transposition that you want. So when learning roots and fifths, it's a lot easier than approaching it on a band instrument or on a piano, because it's something where it's not necessarily something you have to necessarily think about really quick. It's more about just knowing the pattern, and it can help you get the answer that you need. Learning how to play roots and fifths as a bassist is a really great concept that you might need to teach a junior high or beginning bassist in a jazz band one day, and they might be posed with the challenge of having to create a bass line that has not been written out by the composer or the arranger. So you have to kind of at least give them a little bit of guidance to get them started. So if you have the newest edition of the book, page 62, I honestly think is a really good explanation of how to play roots and fifths. If you have an older edition of the book, it's okay, but honestly, if you can find someone who has the newest edition and just ask them to take a picture or scan it to you, I would highly recommend it, because it's just laid out so much nicer. They did such a better job with the updated version. So with your roots and fifths, I'm going to kind of go through them a little bit to demonstrate them and kind of explain my approach and stuff like that. So if you're looking at the sheet music, and I'm going to pull it up here real quick, and let's just take a look at just the first 4 measures. So we have C, we have a D, we have a G, and then we have a C again. So the way that we can find our fifths in patterns is really easy. If you're on the E or the A string, or even on the D string, and you're playing a root that's found on one of those 3 strings, the easiest way to find your fifth is by putting your finger down. So in this case, let's say it's the note G, which is found on the 3rd fret of the 6th string. The way that you find the fifth is by going down this way 1 string, and then moving over 2 frets this way. So your G, which is your root, is going to be found on the 3rd fret of the 6th string. Go down a string, and then move 2 frets towards you. So 3 into 5, and that will be your fifth, which is the note D. So find your note, go down a string, go 2 frets towards the body of the guitar, and that will be your fifth. So here's your root, and here's your fifth. That same idea applies to any note that you might have on, let's say, the A string. So if I'm playing the note C on my A string, that also is on 3rd fret of the A string. Same concept. If I'm looking for the fifth, which is the note G, the way that it's easiest to find it, play the C, go down a string, so now you're on string 4, and then move 2 frets over, and that is also, so it's 5th fret of your 4th string, also known as your D string. So you have C and G. And likewise, we do have an E in this tune. So if we're going on the D string here, playing your E on the second fret of your fourth string, again, go down a string, and then move 2 strings in. And you're going to be playing the note B, which is the 5th, again, of your E. So that is found on the 4th fret of your G string, or also known as your 3rd string. So if your root, is on 6, 5, or 4, go down a string, 2 frets in, 2 frets closer to you. Now, here's another fun little one that you can do. If you're not looking to do, let's say, the 5th up, kind of like this, but you're wanting more of a 5th that's lower than the root, you can also approach it this way. So this obviously is something you can't do on the low E string, but it is something that you can do on the A string and the D string. So if I have my C again, and let's say I don't want that higher G, the G that's going to sound higher than our C, what I can do is you can actually just go 1 string up. So this time my root is on string 5, and I'm going to go up to string 6. I'm going to stay on the same fret. So if my C is 3rd fret of my 5th string, then my G that's lower, my 5th, is going to be on the 6th string, same fret, 3rd fret. So it's C to G, C to G. So you can do it either by going C, G, or going C, G. Either way is great. It doesn't matter which one you do, as long as it's right. Again, it's kind of a personal preference at this point, but it's something that you should know how to do, because you may be tasked with either teaching a young bassist, you may be tasked with having to play the bass in a junior high band, because you may not have a bass player. So it's just good to know fundamental, ideas on the guitar, knowing how to just navigate anywhere on the guitar. So if I'm on this E up here, again, I'm on 2nd fret, 4th string. My 5th, again, I said it can be up here, but it also can be 1 string up, which would be my 5th string, and then same fret. And what I'm doing is, let me kind of scooch up here. What I'm doing is that if you would like to go from 1 string down to the string below, what you can do is just roll your finger like that, back and forth, so you don't have to lift it up physically and bring it down as well. So that's a way of doing that. So looking at this sheet and how I want you to approach it, that you'll have to do for your test. So if you're looking here, first measure, you have a C chord that's happening for the entire measure, and over the first 2 beats, you have the letter R over here. And then over beats 3 and 4, you have the 5. We're going to make it simplistic for you because this is your first time doing it. We're going to do them in half notes. So your root is going to be played as a half note, and your 5th is going to be played as your half note. You might be thinking to yourself, am I doing my root in 5th and my strumming of the chords at the same time? The answer is no. You are going to demonstrate the melody by itself, the chord strums by itself, and then the bass line by itself as well. So don't feel like you're having to put all these things together into one. That's not what we're doing. So to kind of demonstrate here, the first line, I'm going to go C for a half note, to G, which is my 5th, to my D, to my G, and then to my C again. Now you might be asking yourself, okay, the note D, the note A, am I using the open strings to do those, or what am I doing? I would recommend don't use the open strings for the D and the A. Get used to just moving your hand around and getting the feeling of this pattern. So your A, you can also play on the 5th fret of the low E string, that 6th string, or you can play the D, 5th fret of the 5th string. So I would avoid playing your roots as open strings. Just get out of the habit of doing that. If you have any questions, please let me know. This week's lessons are a little bit shorter just because I wanted to get the other meat and potatoes out of the way and then allow you to start kind of slowly working on RLE because it's not going to take you as much time as the bar chords and as the finger picking. So again, to recap, what you'll need to do for RLE for the test, we're going to give you a specific strums pattern to do. We're going to ask you to play the melody, and then we're going to ask you to play the root and fifth in half notes. Half notes. So one half note for root, one half note for the fifth. Thanks.